Coming up, we're looking at Indigenous representation in 2021, from breakthrough Native television shows and actors to award-winning books and museums. I'm Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for these exciting stories from Indian country today.
The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University is honored to be a supporter of Indian Country Today. Working with award-winning professors, Cronkite students learn news reporting, social media, shooting and editing videos, and producing content for communications industries. Cronkite's 15 professional programs give students the opportunity to cover critical issues throughout the U.S. and beyond. Learn more at cronkite.asu.edu.
This is Indian Country Today.
Ku'watsi Hopa. Thank you for joining us. I'm Aaliyah Chavez. 2021 was a year full of Indigenous representation. It started off in January when a Tlingit artist won a Caldecott Medal for her artwork in the storybook We Are Water Protectors. The book was illustrated by Michaela Goad and written by Carol Lindstrom. Together, the duo made history as the first Indigenous people to ever win a Caldecott Medal. Representation was seen in other ways too, like in the new hit show Rutherford Falls. ICT's associate editor Vincent Schilling sat down with the show's cast earlier this year for an interview. Here's actor Ed Helms reflecting on how much attention the show received.
Candidly, I'm still learning about the impact that a show like this has in the Native community and how much it's resonating. And the more I learn, the more proud and grateful I am to be a part of something like this. It's truly overwhelming, and I can say even outside of that context, just this is some of the most. This show it has been one of the most rewarding creative experiences of my life. And not just because it's felt like, it's felt meaningful in a way that so many other things I've done maybe haven't, but also because just the creative energy on this show, the kindness and benevolence of everyone who works on this show, the entire writing staff, our entire cast, everyone just found this dynamic that I've never experienced before. This is not my first rodeo. I've been in a lot of stuff and I've had a lot of fun. I've been incredibly lucky to be a part of some amazing things. And this experience, for so many reasons, it is incredibly special.
Executive producer of Rutherford Falls, Sarah Teller Ornelas, says it was a dream to work with other Native people to make this show come to life.
I think I'm so excited that we're, one of the first shows where Native people are so prominent, not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera. But we have Reservation Dogs, we have this Marvel show coming, we have, hopefully Sovereign. Like, I feel like it's a really breakthrough moment right now for Native people in television, especially. And I would also just shout out Ed, because I think he's a very humble person, but I feel like we've all gotten calls from, non-Native media makers who say, like, the script's done, we just love for you to read it and sign off on it or add a couple of details. And Mike and Ed really did invite, my voice and the voice of many others to the table early in the process. And that was what was so wonderful about this, was just, having such a large Native writers room, having, me there from the beginning. It's really been, I think, part of the process I'm just eternally grateful for.
The show features many Native actors in big roles. One of those actors is Michael Gray Eyes.
I remember I was talking with Ed one day on the set, and Ed goes like, man, we're lucky dudes. And I was like, yeah, I love the set. I love the people I work with. I would drive on the highway in LA. I'd be like, beaming because I was so happy to come to work. And I was like, I'm just going to meet all these beautiful people, this beautiful crew. And then I'd laugh like through the day because it was so much fun to play. And then I'd go home and I'd learn my lines. And the next morning on the highway, grinning like a fool. So it's been an extraordinary, extraordinary journey for me.
When we come back, we travel to Oklahoma to hear from natives working to change narratives.
This is Indian Country Today.
The novel Killers of the Flower Moon is the basis for a major motion picture premiering next year. It tells the tragic story of Osage people who were mysteriously murdered in the 1920s. The upcoming movie features major actors. Have you ever wondered what happens when Leonardo DiCaprio shows up in your town? ICT's Caitlin Onawa-Boycell shared this report from July.
Around 3,000 people live in Pawhuska, and once Hollywood moved in for the summer, the population doubled.
One day we looked out the window and there was Leonardo DiCaprio and Martin Scorsese, and we were panicked.
Everything changed from the front of their own office to the dirt on the road. Hollywood transformed downtown Pawhuska to the 1920s. But just 2 doors down, the Osage News sign was changed to the local paper in the film.
Now, in the film, our office is the Fairfax Chief, which is the name of the real-life newspaper of Fairfax, Oklahoma, and it is still in existence today.
The changes reflect an era that is important and tragic for the Osage people. Killers of the Flower Moon addresses the murders of Osage people at the hands of white people who wanted to gain control of their mining rights. The story centers on one Osage family who was targeted by white men. The men married sisters and systematically killed them and took over their oil property. Many Osage people hope the movie really brings that history to light.
The Osages and their culture and their what they went through and how they survived this.
Still, some Osage people have mixed feelings on the film.
This part of history was not told in their history classes in high school and in college. And so with that said, it has brought about feelings of thankfulness that the story is getting out there.
Filming is expected to end in September. In Pawhuska, Oklahoma, Caitlin Onawa-Boycell, Indian Country Today.
Staying in Oklahoma, in September, a new state-of-the-art museum opened. It aims to represent Native people, even through storytelling like museums.
A museum that's been in the making since the 1980s is finally opening up. It sits on a 40-acre site along the Oklahoma River at the crossroads of America. The thoughtful design highlights all 39 tribes, including the Delaware, Choctaw, and Kaw.
This site, though, was a former oil field, and in fact, I believe it was called Oil Field Number 1. In the early 1900s, it produced about 60% of the domestic oil supply.
So even before they broke ground, they had to repair the land.
A lot of healing had to happen with the land. We had to cap the oil wells. Over the years, it kind of became a dump site. We had to clear out thousands of tires from the site.
From a dumping ground to a spectacular design, it shows off both the summer and the winter solstice.
So the building itself, the facility itself, is really designed like a cosmological clock. There are two circles that intersect together. The larger circle is this giant earthen structure. It's based on a mound structure from our ancestors that were here.
You guess which bone is in.
Interactive games will let the kids learn to play a hand game involving a bone. Visitors will also see and learn about sports figures like Jim Thorpe, the Olympic gold medalist. Visitors will also see an exhibit showing the misrepresentation of Native Americans in comic books, romance novels, and even mascots. On the second floor are artifacts from the Smithsonian Native American collection, like this hat from a Modoc person. Art is a huge part of the museum, from giant wall murals painted on copper to a large pottery piece by Jerry Redcorn, who is Caddo. After walking through the exhibits, guests can get a taste of some indigenous foods at the 39 restaurant. There, Chef Loretta Barrett Odin will serve you everything from butternut squash soup, bison burgers, to sweet corn and lavender creme brulee.
So using the ingredients that are indigenous here to Oklahoma, but then also from the tribe's homelands, original homelands, I'll never run out of an ingredient base to use. So I'm pretty much using everything I can find that is indigenous to some point in the Americas to put on this menu.
The food comes from all indigenous peoples to reflect the variety, just like the exhibit reflects the variety of the people.
Want them to understand the great diversity we have among our tribes. A lot of people think we're all the same, or we have the same languages or the same beliefs.
They also tell me that their museum curator staff is 100% Native American. In Oklahoma, Caitlin Onawa Boycell, Indian Country Today.
We'll be right back.
This is Indian Country Today.
As we mentioned before, 2021 was a big year for Native people. In September, Muskogee Creek citizen Joy Harjo was appointed to a third term as the United States Poet Laureate. She is the first Native person to hold this title, and her job is to appreciate and raise awareness about poetry nationwide. Now let's look at another Indigenous person on television. In November, I interviewed reality TV star Rico DeWilde. Life Below Zero is a television series airing on the National Geographic Channel. It follows residents living in the frigid winters of Alaska, many of them aiming to fish, hunt, and gather to make it through to the next season. The show has won 7 Emmy Awards. Let's take a look.
Are we ready for winter? I don't know if you're ever ready for it, but that's just life out here.
Alaska doesn't care about your age.
I want the kids to learn you have to think ahead to survive.
Or your years of experience.
You think you have control, think again.
Up here, the only number that matters is measured in degrees.
Temperature drops, it's game over for you.
Rico DeWilde is a star on the show. He is a Koyukon at the Baskin and has been a cast member since 2018. He joins us now to tell us about his experience. Hi, Rico.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, thank you for asking. So tell us, how did you make it on a show like this?
There was someone that recorded me moose hunting. He was doing a documentary for a corporation out here. And I think a new president came in and the project got dropped, but he ended up making some YouTube videos and put it up for me. He got me a channel, so I was really ignorant to all that. But he actually filmed me doing a moose hunt, and that's how I got noticed by Nat Geo channel.
And the show Life Below Zero actually takes a look at your everyday life. And I could imagine that that is pretty interesting, given that sometimes when you work in television production, you have to start a scene and then stop a scene and start again and stop. Tell us, what is that experience like with the life that you live in particular?
Well, for one, I never thought I'd be doing TV. Just I grew up living in the woods with my family, and everything is pretty second nature to us, all the survival stuff. So filming with the film company kind of offers me an outside perspective of what others see of it in this lifestyle. And yeah, it's hard though with the film crew sometimes, because they do stop you and they slow you down. And also you're dealing with up to 3 film people and 1 safety guy for them. And sometimes, most of the times, they're not used to the Alaskan climate and driving snow machines and just watching out for dangers out there, like places that might have open water in the winter or maybe grizzly danger in the summer. So it's a lot of thinking for others while I'm doing it. It does slow me down, but it also slows me down in a good way too, because they like to have me speaking with my kids more. So kind of in our culture is like just watch and learn, but I think as a parent, it helped me slow down and engage my kids a lot more and help me become more patient with my kids. So that's one of the good sides of it.
I want to talk about the idea of Native representation on the screen on a grander level. I think you might be one of a handful of Native people who has a regular appearance on a show like this. What does that mean to you to be able to represent Native and Alaska Native people in that way?
I think it's a big honor for me to be able to portray our people and just doing our everyday life out here and bringing that positive side to the greater masses of this world. And I think National Geographic and British Broadcasting, the ones that produce it, they've done a real good job of portraying our culture in a natural light and really showing the positive side of our culture. And I think it's important. I feel honored to do it because growing up, a lot of times we look at like outside stars like basketball stars, musicians, and all that. And sometimes we tend to lose touch with our culture, or like we're trying to escape our culture. And we're kind of like a forgotten race, I feel like, with Native Americans. And for the big networks to come in and show our life and show us portraying our life with a lot of pride, I think it brings pride to me and my people. So I'm really honored to be part of it.
I want to switch gears because we only have a little bit of time left, but I want to talk about Life Below Zero First Alaskans. What is it, and tell us more.
Life Below Zero First Alaskans is a show coming up, and it's all Native American cast, all Alaska Native cast, and I'm really excited to hear about it. I did a little help. I helped a lot actually looking for cast for that show, and I think it's really important for our people to have representation like that. And like I said, National Geographic has been real good about portraying the positive side of our life and the real side of Native American culture on a big stage. And that's something I've never seen happen before. So I'm really excited about First Alaskans, Life Below Zero, all Native American cast.
That was Life Below Zero cast member Rico DeWild. When we come back, we'll reflect on another award-winning television show that took Indian country by storm.
This is Indian Country Today.
FX and Hulu's hit show Reservation Dogs premiered in September. A month before that, ICT's Max Montour traveled to Los Angeles, California to visit the show's red carpet event. He caught up with some faces that you might recognize.
We could be in California as soon as 2 months.
California, here we come! The importance of showing real res life. There's so many things that are so important in showing real life. You know, our people are so funny. Like we probably have the most beautiful culture. So I think that Indigenous representation for now is a big thing. Because growing up, you don't see Native people on TV. This is the first show that's actually written by Natives and has an all-Native cast. So it gives us a chance to kind of do it ourselves, you know, and like show them how it really is, you know.
I mean, it's really important because it humanizes us, shows that we're funny, that we're capable of humor, and I think that that's the most important thing, is just showing us as human beings. I think if there was a show like this around when I was young, it would just help me feel not so alone. I think it would help us as Native people feel seen, and I think feeling seen is very important. I think that it's healthy, and our communities and our kids need that.
In today, 2021, it is very important for Indigenous people to have their own voice, have their own perspectives, and and be able to tell their own story and without somebody else telling their story for them. I mean, I can see myself definitely going through some specific things that these kids are going through, and I've related to myself on those ends. You know, I pulled from my own life from the character as well. You know, it wasn't that hard to act. It was just really being me, and it was really awesome that the script kind of just fit its way into my real life, and so it wasn't really hard. It just did it, you know.
You know, I keep going back to my mom. You know, it's like that's who I care about and who I want to see these stories. She grew up in 48th North Dakota in Standing Rock Reservation, and in Browning, Montana, Blackfeet Reservation, and it's never been portrayed on television. The day in the life of kids on the reservation, and the issues that they go through, the problems, the triumphs they go through, the tribulations they go through. And what's most important is they get to see that native humor, you know, because it's a special kind of humor. It really is. All cultures have it, but all cultures are very specific in how they portray their humor. And native humor is, you know, very specific. And to bring that and out on television for the world to see, it's just beautiful, man, you know? We finally are getting representation, you know, in a different, we're in a different era where people are, you know, taking chances and producing native content. I've been doing this for a long time, and it's just a beautiful thing to see.
Important because there's so many misconceptions, you know what I mean? And exactly, that's the answer. So many misconceptions, so it's important to bring it up, what it's really like.
My character's name is Daniel Johnson, right? And he's the 5th res dog. And I know you don't see any pictures of him on the billboards and whatnot, but he's just as important as, you know, Alora, Cheese, Willie Jack, and Bear. I feel like Daniel's the one who really brought them together, really made them the res dogs, made them them. Very important. It gives kids someone to look up to. You know, I mean, not every kid can be, you know, I don't know, doctor dad, they can't, or lawyer dad, they can't always look up to that. So it's, I don't know.
And Alora Dan is the kind of the brains behind the operation and is the one who organizes the petty crimes that they commit in order to raise funds to leave and make it out here to California where we are tonight. I think that Indigenous representation in film and television is hugely important, just so that we see our stories reflected back at us, that we see that our voices are important and that our experiences matter. I know that if I had watched this when I was a kid growing up in my community on my reservation, Gahnawage, up in Canada, that my whole outlook, my self-confidence, my self-worth would have been so drastically different than it was. So it's my hope that Reservation Dogs really empowers the youth from our communities and also for youth from all marginalized communities as well. There's such a universality, especially with Indigenous humor between our communities, and I really believe that humor has been a coping mechanism for us to survive 500 years of colonization, and is one of the main reasons why we're still alive and here and thriving today, is because we're able to shrug things off a little bit, where we don't let it affect us too personally. And I heard this thing where it's like, if you go onto a Native community and you're not being teased, then they don't like you.
I think it's awesome to have this platform to shine light on Native issues and to put it in a comedic sense, because laughter is good medicine, and the world needs that right now. A lot of good medicine. So I don't know what you think.
I think they're going to touch on a bunch of subjects that a lot of people are going to be like, man, that's going down on the res, and it might inspire some people to actually want to help out more on the res than what the government is doing.
And I think a lot of other neighborhoods will relate with different issues that are relatable. Same things are happening on the res, maybe even worse so.
So Cheese is a character, you know, who's he's like the little brother of the group. You know, he doesn't really have his own goals or anything. He just kind of follows along, does what he's told, and he might not understand everything 100%, but he's there to support it 100% of the way. Well, I think it's pretty important because, you know, you get to see like kind of like a day in life, like a lot of people. Of course, not all people, but you know, just, you know, seeing people like deal with, like, our characters deal with our own problems or come in like their own situations, or like a more realistic take on how reservations are. They're not all like doom and gloom. It's just trying to catch that real essence. I think Sterling Harjo really captured that, Sterling and Taika.
I mean, working with Taika was like super intimidating at first because like I've been such a fan and he's such a star, but it was great. He's also just a community member first and foremost, and the same with Sterling Harjo, whose life this entire series is based off of. We all wanted to do Sterling right, and we all wanted to make sure that we were representing the Muskogee Creek and Seminole nations appropriately and respectfully and honestly, of course with that Native humor thrown in there. And I just feel really fortunate and honored and privileged to have been able to be a part of this project.
Last month, Reservation Dogs won a Gotham Award for Breakthrough Series and Short Format. Reservation Dogs was renewed for another season and is scheduled to air in 2022. And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. Thank you for watching. For all the latest news and updates, visit us anytime at IndianCountryToday.com. I'm Malia Chavez.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.
This is Indian Country Today.